Hey, so I woke up today, and I think like a lot of people that might be invested in Nvidia were shocked to see that it's down. I think at this point it's something like 13% down, and because of that, the entire market is down. They have such a large market cap, and the question is why? Like, what happened? And here's a little bit of explanation. I'm sure more details are going to come out, and other people are going to have different opinions. It's hard to understand everything, but it's this DeepSeek R1 AI model that's like really making the news. And there is a main detail here that they're a relatively small startup in comparison to your open AIs, Anthropics of the world. And they don't have the capital, the resources, they don't have the GPU power that everyone else does. So they were able to train this model on for about $5 million. So at least this is what I read online. I'm sure these numbers are going to change. Whereas someone like Meta or like X.com, et cetera, these ones are spending $100 million plus to train their models on super powerful machines. We have like each one of these GPUs that are used to train these are $40,000. I think some of the latest ones that NVIDIA are coming out with are much more, whereas the models or the chips they're using to train R1 are like gaming ones that you can buy for a couple grand, and they have a few thousand of these, and so they don't need a whole data center in a sense to do this, whereas OpenAI and Meta have been using that. And they're gaining some crazy good efficiency on this. They're seeing like 90% accuracy and training the model for a fraction of the cost, and it cost 95% cheaper to run this for the consumer. So this is really powerful for a lot of people who might not care about 100% accuracy, and the 90% is just going to be fine. And they did this with a few different ways. Like one is this traditional AI is using like 32 decimal points, whereas what they're using is 8, and boom, 75% efficiency. They also are doing this by a lot of the LLMs are using a way of doing. They look at each word and they predict like the next word when they're writing it, and they read each word when they're reading it. And so imagine like you have a sentence like I am Brandon. Like it'll look at I am Brandon. It'll look at each token. So not even the word itself, but each part of the word. Whereas what they're doing is they're like chunking it in a bunch of sentences. So a similar technique that if you ever like learned speed reading techniques, they tell you to look at chunks of word, like sometimes entire paragraphs. You digest the whole paragraph at once to take it in. You lose some efficiency, but you gain like twice the speed. So they were able to do that as well. The chips, like to use a smaller chip, being able to use like gaming processors instead of these like super expensive machines. This is like reminds me of how when Google came out and everyone was using mainframes to do their search algorithm, and they were like, oh hey, we only have access to these $300 Dell machines that we're gonna buy at Fry's or wherever they bought their computers at, and they were able to run a bunch of these small machines and be able to compete with these mainframes at the time. And then it expanded where a bunch of these small machines actually are much more powerful than a mainframe was. And mainframes, while they're still used for some cases, of course, they're very rarely used. And if you're developing new software, you generally aren't going to do this on a single machine or think about that for most cases. So it's kind of like the same kind of comparison where this might be where it's going. Now, if you look at NVIDIA, like why does it affect NVIDIA stock? And NVIDIA's whole model is they're selling these super powerful machines that they own a crazy amount of market share on this. They basically have a monopoly on these types of chips, and that's why they're doing so well. And they sell them for like a 90% markup or something ridiculous. It's a great business for them, and they've done really well with it. And I mean, they're a big reason for this boom. I'm definitely very very happy with that. So what is next, and like why am I'm so bullish on Nvidia, and I think that we have this great ability now of saying, hey, we now have different techniques to use, or at least the AI labs do, because all this is released as an open source model. You can see the code. They release how it works. They show that they show all what they do in a white paper, and it's going to give these people ideas. Like another thing they did that just comes to mind is they have this like expert model within it. So OpenAI's models, like they use the whole model when you're asking a question. It's like a generalized model, and they're training this amazing model that just knows everything. Whereas the DeekSeek one, imagine like there's an expert for law, another expert for like medical, another one for chemistry, and I'm probably summing this up to like incorrectly. There's probably models for very specific things like maybe language or math or whatever it might be. But there is this expert model idea where only a portion of the model is used when it's needed. And that's pretty exciting too. So if OpenAI and Anthropic are able to utilize this and gain some efficiency on training costs, so building new models, on the ability to deliver cheaper models to the consumer, which will help like companies like the one I work for with Upwell, we can really see this, and we don't need fully accurate models to be amazing in general. And so I think that the combination of ones that are maybe very expensive and very accurate with a combination of cheaper, less accurate ones are going to be kind of the way forward for a lot of companies. And I think you're starting to see that now. I think you're going to see it a lot more in the future, especially when you have ones like R1 that are 95% cheaper. And it's such a difference for 90% of the cost. There's a really good trade-off there. And kind of an example of that is like in the first step of AI with Upwell, with the document parsing. I mentioned this in a previous video. Is we do document classification. And this is when we determine this document is like this. This document is this. So like maybe it's an invoice versus a bill of lading versus like a notice of something. So in that case, the classification is like almost always right. Like we don't really need like a really fancy model on this because it's relatively easy for the AI to figure that out. Whereas other types of AI, like reading a receipt, is very difficult for the AI to do. Each of the line items, there's a lot more data, there's so many more things to be accurate on. If you're wrong on an amount, that could be like a fatal error on a parsing a document. So you need a much more intelligent model in those cases. So different parts of your process and your AI like kind of workflow are going to be, I think, in my opinion, are going to be run on different types of models in the future. Maybe not for your MVP, but certainly for as you scale into various markets. So to sum it up, I'm very excited about this new R1 model. I'm really excited to play with it. I haven't played with it quite yet. I want to see how it does in coding, and I could say that if it's faster, I'm already going to be sold because it's going to be really helpful. And the censorship things that they do with in China are not really too much of an issue. Like that is one con of this model is, for example, if you search like Tiananmen Square from like 1989, it is blocked. It just completely doesn't work, and that's obviously an issue for like some models. But let's say we want to use it for Upwell with document parsing, unless one of the documents has to do with that. I can't imagine it would. But if it did, it would fail on that specific case. Now, where I'm really excited about is I think that we're going to combine this. So imagine OpenAI just says, hey, we have all these machines. We're able to spend the money with these super powerful machines. Let's use them with these techniques to be more efficient and create an even better model that's like 100 times better than what the competition is. I'm sure that's already in the talks. I can't see how it isn't. If I was able to come to that thought within like a few minutes, I'm sure the open AI engineers have come up with it last week. So, or maybe a few months ago, because they're obviously just super intelligent. Anyway, I'm very excited, and even though my Nvidia stock is down today, so instead of crying, I'm just like very excited for the future. All right, have a great day, and happy AI.